Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered. Good afternoon, everyone. This is your host, Adriana Fierstro, and we are live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are here today, November the 18th. I can't believe it is almost the end of the year. It is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, so grab your coffee, grab your lunch. You are listening to Negotiating Happiness, and I'm here today with Andrea from the Balance Bliss. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here hanging out with you for this hour and everyone else who is joining us for the chat.
Amazing. Yes. So everybody, we are live. So send in your questions and comments. I can see most of our streaming platforms on here. If you are on Instagram, still send them in. I will read them out. I just can't put them up on the screen. We'd love to hear from you, even if you want to just say hello. Let me do a quick little intro. So we are here today with Andrea, as we said. And so who is Andrea? If you guys don't know her, she is a transformation coach and speaker, a podcast host, and a 3 times published author. With a wealth of experience spanning over a decade, Andrea has dedicated her career to coaching and uplifting individuals on their journeys to wellness and happiness. Her expertise lies in assisting people recognize and reframe the narratives they tell themselves regarding their capabilities. Her true calling lies in guiding individuals through transformation one step at a time. I can't wait to dive in today into our discussion because Andrea and I always have such fun conversations. You guys will see she's so easygoing. Love her. We'll dive into the whole idea of rewriting your inner narratives, what role mindset plays into your life and business, since they are connected, right? Uh-huh. And embracing holistic well-being just in order to thrive as our authentic selves, just to be us, right?
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, as you're reading that bio, I'm just smiling because it's like I'm literally living my dream and life's purpose. I have always had this innate desire to help. I did that in social work before I moved into the coaching space. And so being in rooms with people, with you, with everyone who's here in any conversation where I can give nuggets, just share what's on my mind in hopes that it will help somebody else on their journey is I could do that all day. You're going to have to get me off this mic.
But that's good. It means you've got passion, and that's what we want. We want passion. We want people that know what they're talking about and that care about the type of content that they're putting out there, right? We just consume so much of it that I find that it's just too much.
It is too much. And I think that that's okay, so if I'm thinking about why I do the work that I do, part of why I like to show up and share in the way that I do is because there is so much information out there. And we are being given this information from a very young age in many, many, many different ways, right? As kids, we're listening to our parents. There's things we hear on TV. We innately learn about the world around us and how we should be in that world from exterior conditions. Then you get into social media, and I was around when social media didn't exist, and now I'm around when it does exist. So even seeing how much more information is available and we're being inundated with all the time, it can be so hard to sift through that and look at what your own inner dialogue is and what you're saying to yourself and what's true, what's not, what should I believe? It's overwhelming.
No, it is. And it's also very hard to not listen to whatever it is that you're hearing and consuming and not form this really, I would say it's an unhealthy idea of how everybody else is living or how everybody else does their own thing. And it's not, even the smartest people are fall victim to this, right? Because it's just how our brain works. Whatever we see, whatever we visualize revolves around our personal experiences, right? So I'm so excited to talk to you about this because a lot of us have these internal biases, I think, that need to just go, right? They
Yeah.
limit us
Well,
or they make us feel small, they just need to go.
yeah, and we all have like thousands and thousands of thoughts in a day, and we all have
Yes.
negative self-talk as well. I think that we look at other people on the outside, even coaches or mentors or others who on the outside seemingly we're like, oh my gosh, it looks like they have it all together. Like, why don't I? And the reality is we all have negative internal dialogue that comes along with those thoughts that we have in a day. But what is
Yeah.
helpful and what I've found really helpful and also teach other people about is that like we have the choice as to whether or not we believe all of those thoughts that we have. And just because they're a thought that we have doesn't mean that it's true, or doesn't mean that it is an actual accurate representation of who we are or what we're capable of or what we can achieve. And
Right.
it doesn't mean that we can't change that thought. I often make a joke that like I think it's like a sappy cheesy author joke that I like to make. It's that like we are the author of our own stories. And if we don't
Right.
like the manuscript, the chapters, the inner, like the dialogue in those chapters, we get to choose to change it. Not that it's
Yeah.
an easy thing to do, like by any stretch, but through consistent repetition, we can start to create those shifts and those changes that we want to see. But it's always a conscious choice.
Right. Right. So how do we get to that point, right? So we often forget that we are not at the point where we can recognize those behaviors or those patterns because it involves thinking about our thinking, which is funny to say, right? So how do we get there? How do you consciously, get to that point where everyone's like, okay, I get it.
I say, oh my gosh, because like there's so many like micro steps to get there, right?
Yes.
But it's
Yeah.
like if I want to, okay, so if somebody who's listening and is like, oh, I've never thought before that, the thoughts that I'm having are a reflection of the world around me, or I've never really like taken time to be like, okay, I can start to change and shift that inner dialogue. I think the
Yeah.
first step really is like that awareness piece, like you said, like being aware of our thinking, because it's really easy for us. Our society is so busy. There's so many things going on. We're wearing so many hats, especially like if you're in business for yourself, you're wearing even more hats because you're like being all of the hats just in the business. And then you also have to do the world outside the business. And so it's really easy for us to stop or to forget to stop, to take a minute to like listen to the thoughts that we're having and
Yeah.
take a moment to be like, oh, is that doesn't feel good, or that doesn't make me feel good, or whatever it is. So I would say like awareness is literally the first part, just taking some time to like stop and eavesdrop on like what your regular thoughts are, because
Right.
once you know what they are, once you have an understanding of the things that like keep coming up, it's like, maybe every time you try to, I'm just going to use this as an example because it pops into my head. Every time you try and go on stories and do like some sort of story about your business, or like talk about what you're doing or whatever it is,
Yeah.
every time you decide like, oh, I think I need to do a story today, or I'd like to, you have
Hmm.
this voice inside of you that's like, oh, you're not going to know what to say. You're going to fumble when you get up there. And
Right.
all of these sorts of things. You can't do that. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Nobody wants to see you. Like, who cares about that stuff? If those
Right.
thoughts are regularly coming up and you're not aware of them, then they're going to keep holding you back from doing that live, or launching that new thing, or going out onto that new business venture, or asking for what you need in your life, like all of these different things. And so when
Yeah.
you can start to create some awareness and just some listening, it's a tool I give my clients. It's literally eavesdrop on your thoughts. Spend a week being like, okay, what are the things that are coming up consistently? Because then you can start to identify what those are and work through them even more, so that you can start to shift those thoughts that really aren't serving your mindset in your business and your personal life.
Right. Right. So I guess tell us a little bit about how you work with people one-on-one so that we can understand the process a little bit. And because sometimes, and myself included, it's not that I can't do things on my own, but I need accountability. I need to be able to put in the time and then have somebody follow up with me, right? That's important because I always have the best of intentions, but we
Mhm.
don't always follow through, right?
Yeah. Well, we all have the best of intentions, and it's hard to follow through. It's not that we don't do it. It's hard to, because we're pushing back against our brain's programming and the way our bodies are designed, which is for our thoughts and our habits to not be something that we have to consciously think about, right? It's just like those are
Right.
supposed to be things that automatically happen. So when we're trying to push against things that are supposed to automatically happen, like that does take accountability and consistency. But let me back up to like how I work with people, and like how I even got into this space
Yes.
of like mindset
Yes.
and coaching. So like I said, I've always had this like innate desire within me to help people. And when I graduated high school, I went to college for a social worker equivalent type of diploma. And then
Hmm.
I graduated, and then I went on to work frontline for over 10 years. I worked with kids who were in the foster care system. I worked with adults who were experiencing like a mental health crisis. I worked in like more long-term kind of, well, in crisis work, but for a long-term period at an agency, like a charity. And I always just helped people work on their situation and kind of move through some sort of like goal that they needed to action in the social work space. And I did that for a long time, and then I got pregnant. And when I went back to work, I was like, oh, I kind of was on my own growth and wellness journey throughout that time as well. And
Hmm.
I felt really called to, I was learning things about myself that I was like, I wonder how many people know this kind of information, or how many people take the time to like explore this and do this work. And so I started kind of just like coaching women in the movement space. It was like I was on a movement journey, I was coaching other women, and then I was like, I really enjoy this too. And so
Hmm.
then I got a coaching certification to kind of complement my social services certification. And so with those two things together, I now the work that I do is primarily with women, though I do support men, especially in workshop type environments when I'm going into places and speaking with teams and that sort of thing. But I
Yeah.
really help people understand the power, because this was always a common thread, even for myself on my own journey, the power of your thoughts and what you believe, and how those infiltrate every part of your life, have everything to do with how happy you feel, how successful you feel, how
Yes.
well you feel, both in your personal life and also your business, right? Like your business can only grow as much as you have grown as
Yes.
an individual. And so I'm just so passionate about having these conversations. I do it like through one-on-one coaching. I do it through events, which you've been to. You've been to an event that I
Yes.
hosted recently, through events and through workshops and seminars. I have a free workshop coming up at the end of this year that I'll share a little bit later. Through co-author projects where women share their stories, and then in retreat settings. So it's like taking you out of your everyday so that you can focus on all of these parts that as a species, I think, or as a humans, we don't spend enough time pouring into. I know it sounds weird, but like as a whole,
Right.
we don't spend enough time pouring into all of these other parts that really keep us feeling as balanced and well and happy as we want to feel. I think everybody, like in the comments, you can let us know, like, do you want to feel happier? Like if somebody said, do you want to be happier? I think everyone would answer yes. And there's so many things that go into that equation. And so I just
Yeah.
love being the guide to supporting people on understanding all of those parts of themselves and helping them to get to a place where they feel confident enough to continue to do that work on their own.
That's amazing. And um, I always love hearing about people's journey and how they started into all of this. And I love hearing how it kind of, went from your own inner work, right? And that's where it kind of stemmed out of, and you wanted to help people. Is there anything from the entrepreneurial side that you would do differently? So while we
Hmm.
know that the work that you do is super important and everybody needs it at some point or another, I don't care who you are, I don't care how, how smart or how developed you are, at some point or another, everybody needs to address these kinds of things. But on the business side, is there anything that you would have done differently that where maybe it would have changed the trajectory of where you were going? We like to talk about the good and the bad here. So if there's anything you
Yeah.
want to share, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I don't know that it's necessarily like a bad thing, but I just think that it's possible that my business would look a little bit differently if I had more business knowledge before I like
Mhm.
went out into the world, because I am, if you can't tell, I'm very passion driven. And so I had a huge passion for doing this work before I ever really like understood the ins and outs of running a business. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs can probably connect with this. Is it's like you get into it and then it's like you have to figure it out along the way, because like you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what you
Right.
need to know
Right.
when you get in there. And so, I launched my business, and I'm going to like my business in 2018. And I'm using air quotes because at that time I was like, I don't even know what I want it to look like. Like, do I want to make packages? How do I launch? How do I talk about what I'm doing? Like, what's the right way to do it? Like, I thought I just said I'm a coach and everyone comes running. Like, is that not how it works? Um, and so I wish that I had somebody that could have supported me like on the business development side on how to market a service-based business, I guess.
Right.
um but
Right.
I think that like also I my business has kind of evolved in the way that it needed to, and I built my own confidence along that way. Like I was nowhere near as confident in speaking about the things that I speak about now, or even coming on a radio show and sharing. Like I didn't have that same comfort level if I didn't hadn't gone through all the other experiences that I did as I was building my business.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I would say that I wish I could have done things
Yeah.
differently. But
Yeah. That's 100% okay when, we have talked about failure and we have talked about how to analyze and how to learn from it. So I think that without failure, you're not progressing fast enough. Like if you're waiting for something to be 100% ready, you're
mhm.
not doing it the right way because you're wasting time or nothing's going to be 100% perfect for you, right? And then you're also not giving yourself the opportunity to see it because it might surprise you, right? People might respond very differently. You're looking at it from being inside of it, and everybody else that's receiving this offer, this whatever it is that you're putting out, is the on the outside, right? So that's a really good reflection. And I don't think, whenever I ask this question, it's not about regrets. It's more about what were the other options, right? Or
Yeah.
how could it have, evolved in a different way? Because obviously it's evolved quite well. It's just this is your experience. Somebody else might be on a different path, and that's okay too, right? So
Well, and to
I
speak
love
to
it.
like what you mentioned about, like people not taking action on things until they feel like it's perfect or until they feel like they're ready. In my first book called You Actually Can Do This, Achieving a Healthy Lifestyle in Spite of Yourself, I launched in 2020, which was a hard time to launch a book, let me tell you. No book launch parties were happening at
Yep.
that time. But
Yeah.
there's a strategy that I often like to refer to, and it's called the 4 C's of confidence. And it's not my strategy. It was coined by, I think his name is Dan Sullivan. Anyway, shout out Dan. But it's really interesting because we all are like, I want to feel like I can do that thing really well before I do that thing. And this strategy actually says that the confidence that you're
Right.
looking for to do the thing doesn't come until you have built confidence in doing the thing. And the only way you can do that is by actually like doing it, scared, unsure. And so these 4 C's to confidence, the first C is
Yes.
you have to have the commitment to do it. You have to be committed. You have to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Then you have to have the courage that goes along with that, of like doing it scared, doing it unsure, being okay with tripping up or, failing. You all failures are an opportunity for learning. And then you have to like do the actual thing, right? You have to like build the capacity to
Right.
doing that thing through committing to it and through having courage. And then once you do all those 3 C's, then the 4th C comes, which is the confidence that we're looking for to do the thing in the first place. And there's so many beautiful things that happen when you do it scared, and when you do it with courage, and when you step outside of your comfort zone and do things that make you feel scared and unsure. You learn incredible things about yourself. You give yourself this like, you give yourself evidence, going back to like that eavesdropping on your own thoughts and like changing that inner narrative that you have.
Yes.
The only way to change those thoughts is to give yourself evidence of a belief otherwise. And you can only give yourself evidence if you're actually doing things to create that evidence. You know what I mean? And so it's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
we have to do it scared. We have to do it unsure. We have to do it if it's uncomfortable. But that's also living, that's how you grow and evolve as a human, which is, I've learned to be like a really, really, it's living. That's what I'll say. It's
Yeah.
living.
Yeah. Yeah, for anybody that's watching, I just went on Amazon to find Andrea's book because who doesn't need, a refresher of how to get that confidence? And it's wild just how much confidence affects everything in our life. I love that. So you guys can probably find it on Amazon. I did paste the link in the comments as well. But you said you had a couple of them, right? Well, here you go. We're browsing Amazon together. That's what
Yes.
we're doing right now.
This
You had
is
a
my
couple of
first
them.
book.
Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah, so that one, and then these are just, so in sharing about what I did with people, so I coach one-on-one, but I also have like these
Yeah.
community mentorship co-author spaces where, I mean, if you want to grow on a personal level exponentially really quickly, share your story in a chapter in a book and see how much you grow throughout that process. I started the Body Bliss trilogy
Right.
in
Right.
2021. And in each of those books, there's 15 women in the first one, 8 in the second, 9 in the third. And do you remember reading like Chicken Soup for the Soul books as like a teenager?
Yes.
So these are similar to
Yes.
Chicken Soup. They're anthologies. Each
I
chapter is
do.
a
I
different
do.
woman sharing their story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what these Body Bliss books are. And then launching next month, actually, I have a copy with me fresh off the press. It's not even available yet, but the Empowered book project
Ooh.
is launching. I know, here it is. It actually matches the branding of the
Show it to
show
us.
very well.
Oh,
Look,
it does.
I yeah, so
Empowered.
look at all
I
these
love it.
beautiful 15 women who are in this book. And so book 1 is launching in December, and then we're actually onboarding authors for book 2. Any woman that has a story
Gotcha.
of resilience, overcoming whatever it is, if you've been through something hard and you want to share about it, that's where these happen. So every time I launch one of these books, I write something in it as well. And I'm in the process of writing a second book because I keep learning and keep growing. But I actually need to finish that one.
Yes. So funny how that works to entrepreneurs and starting 1,000 projects, right? I'm gonna pop Andrea's Instagram in the comments as well so that you guys can just go from there, so that you can get her it's at the.balance.bliss, just as you can see it on the screen as well. Andrea's very active on Instagram if you wanted to to get in contact in there and just to see kind of what she's up for. I have to say, so I met Andrea, I think it was one of the High Vibe Women brunches, and
In the
that's how we
summer, yeah.
connected. Yeah, that's how we connected, and that we had Christina on the show as well. We haven't had Maria yet, but that's the group that I'm talking about. If you know, or if you're from the KW area, KW is in Ontario, Canada. I know we've got some listeners that are in the States. Hello, everybody. And also come say hi. Thank you to, we had Truro Bloom on Instagram that said hi. I know that Brittany was watching, and so was Leaders Lounge and LDV Co. I love you guys. And Melissa tuned in as well. Thank you. Just wrapping up all the hellos. But then I went to one of Andrea's events. And can you remind me what it
The
was? What was
Bloom
it called? The Bloom.
Social.
Yes. The
Yeah, the
Bloom
Bloom
Social.
Social. Yes. Which
Yes.
are okay, so let me total sidebar here. So
Yes.
in this, like, I want to change the narrative for women. I want to help them to grow and evolve. I have three really incredible friends who are also committed to doing the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now, we connected. I won't go into the whole story, but we were just like, we need to bring more rooms and conversations about growth, about authenticity, using your voice, being in rooms with women who are not just talking about the weather and like how many kids they have and how frustrating it is. Like, I mean, we talk about those
Yeah.
things too, but it's about
Sure.
beyond more than that, being seen and
Sure.
heard and safe. And so we had a massive over 100 women event back in March of this year. And then we are now hosting smaller kind of social events that are in the evening, each one different themed. So this last one was, we all vulnerably shared hard things that we've experienced and the lessons we learned from them. In February, we're having another one. The theme around that is going to be relationships, both with yourself and also with those in your life. Because
Which I've bought a ticket for already. So
yeah,
go to
you
the
did.
website. Yeah, I did. It's already on the website.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I had to mention.
That's okay. But it's just like there's so many, and you kind of said this earlier, there's so many different things that make up who we are as humans. And there's so many areas of ourselves that deserve attention and focus. And when we are busy and when we haven't been used to pouring into those areas or having those types of conversations, being in those rooms and spaces, we don't know what we don't know, and it can be a bit overwhelming. And so we just want to create spaces for women to just come and talk about things differently.
Yeah.
Because we're all meant to be heard and seen, and we're all worthy and valuable. And so that is like the common thread between all of the things that we do. And that's kind of what brought us together. But yeah, I love these kinds of conversations that just give us nuggets to think differently.
It was very good. Obviously we were in a room full of women. I don't know the numbers. It wasn't like it was a 10-person
No, there
kind of
was
thing. It was
60,
definitely
there were
larger.
60 women there.
Yeah, so
Plus
60
our
people.
camera crew of men who just like love what we're
Yes.
talking about too.
Yes, it was really funny. I saw a couple of glances between them, and I'm just like, oh, this is hilarious that you're just, here with 60 women. But I have to say, it did feel personal, right? Because people were sharing, and I think I was trying to do too many things. Again, wearing all the hats. I was like, let's take some content. Let's, do I take this shot? Do I do this? But then when I was listening, I think I was almost afraid a little bit of going too far in, because then I can't control what's happening with my eyes. So I was like, all right. Which is a good thing. It's a good thing, right? But it's just a very different kind of networking, or very different kind of event. I really enjoyed it. So I am going to the one in February as well. I did get my ticket. So if anybody's in the KW area, I highly recommend. And also, I don't know, everything was super tasty, and it was beautiful. Everybody was great. All the hosts were chatting with everybody. So it wasn't like your usual stuffy networking, like, oh no, I'm watching the clock when I can leave kind of
We don't do
events.
stuffy. We
Yeah, we
do
don't do
snuggly.
stuffy. Snuggly out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So
I think
yeah.
it's just because we're not really used to that. Like it feels very when you said that you didn't want to go too deep because you were worried about what would be happening with your eyes.
Yeah.
I laughed
Yeah.
because I am a very sensitive, emotional, really feel everything very deeply type of person. And for a long time, and I could cry on a dime. I was doing a live this morning, reading a chapter from my book, and I was like tearing up while I was doing it.
Yeah.
I could cry on a dime. And for a long time, I felt like that there was something wrong with me, that I was like weak because I couldn't control my emotions. And, that if I was to talk about something and I was going to be crying or get emotional, that people would be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you crying over there?
Right. Right.
But in these spaces, when we had our huge event in March, we like bought Kleenex for everyone and put them on their chair and was like, listen, we invite you to actually lean into and feel your emotions. I think that this is why, I shouldn't say I think. My suspicion is that this is why, a lot of us will just kind of, we're like, okay, this thing happened to me, this hard thing, or I feel some emotions about it, but I'm like not going to sit with it. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. Like I don't have time to be sad, or I don't have time to be happy or celebrate ourselves. Like we experience this entire range of emotions as humans that
Yeah.
we only allow ourselves to feel like half of them.
Right.
And so when we take some time to sit with that and let them flow and not push them away, it's just another way that we can honor ourselves in this human experience that we're having, to just like let them out. And so, but we're not
Yeah.
used to that. We're not used to being like celebrated for crying, or we're not used to like being given permission to let it out.
Especially not in business. Like, if you think in the traditional sense, crying doesn't belong in business. So it's something that I think a lot of women feel that it's natural, and we understand that it's a release, but it's like you're in business, you're potentially around people who you could network with, and it's not, maybe they think it's not appropriate to just start crying or whatever. But I think from what you're saying, right? We just need to kind of be human first, and then everything else comes to you. And I do believe that with business as well. So even if we make connections, like I don't go to a networking event to be like, here are what my packages are. That never happens. It's more of like, do I like your vibe? What can we connect on? And I have to tell you that almost every single networking event that I've been to in person, I've walked away not immediately, or sometimes immediately, but not immediately. I've walked away with the project, whether it happened after a week or, a month or 2 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. It's happened because you put that, you put your human side first, and people can connect with
Mhm.
that, and people can say, I can trust you. I can understand the value that you bring. So maybe I do want to work with you. So whenever you're thinking, hey, crying does not belong in the business um, area, I think I think the better question is, when, or like, when do we make time for that? Because it has to exist. It doesn't just disappear. Like you said, you're not just suppressing it. It has to come out at some point. Like, obviously don't cry when you're like closing a deal with your client, but
Cry after.
yeah, cry after. But you have to let that out in a positive way at some point, or else we maybe go the other way and it's negative, right?
Yeah, I like what you
Yeah.
said though, that like we are humans first, because we are
Yeah.
humans first. And
Mhm.
when we're
Mhm.
not acknowledging that, one, in a room with other humans, if we're really just there so like business
Yeah.
focused, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, sure, you can't measure in the moment an ROI on like human connection, for example, but there's so
Sure.
many
Sure.
long-term benefits and results from that. But also like on an individual personal level, like if we don't acknowledge that we are humans first and owners, founders of our businesses second, I think that we're doing
Mhm.
ourselves a really big disservice. Like, okay, so the example that I'm thinking of is like stress management and resting, because I think that like managing stress, and stress does come with being in business for yourself, and
Yeah.
also resting, or I guess not resting, also can come along with having a business and wearing all of the hats, and doing things to prioritize managing the stress that we hold, that we carry, listening to our bodies, maybe physically when they're sore and they're tense, or we have headaches, or,
Yeah.
we're feeling it, maybe like when we're really irritable, like not listening to those cues and also not resting are not going to create the space for us to have a really thriving business and personal life that we all want to have. And so
Right.
taking the time to, once a week or once a month, carving out time to go for a walk outside, or
Mhm,
like
mhm.
carving out time for that massage or that lunch with a friend that you really enjoy, or making sure that you're shutting your laptop early, or not working until all hours of the night. Like all of these things, while they don't have a direct correlation to like what's the return on that investment, but they actually are so valuable when it comes to being in business, because you are your biggest asset. We talk
Yes.
about assets and we talk about like, all those business terms that I didn't know when I started my business. But like you are your biggest asset when it comes to whatever endeavor that you're on. And if you're not taking time to prioritize and pour into that resource, then the castle will crumble if you're not building up the
Yes.
foundation.
Yes. So before we go on here, we've passed the halfway mark, but I wanted to make comments about what you said because it kind of fits into what Suzanne is saying, the Instagram comment, the True Bloom that I posted
Mm.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for those of you that are just tuning in, I'm your host, Adriana Fierstro, and you are listening to Negotiating Happiness. And we are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And I am here with Andrea from the Balance Bliss, and we are talking about everything to do with mindset, rewriting inner narratives, and we're just answering comments that we have here. So one of our comments came from Instagram. It's the only way I can post these comments, I guess, from Instagram's not very, doesn't connect with our platform here, but that's okay.
Mm.
So Susanna Truro Bloom said, I think we become too obsessed with living for work rather than working to live. And that ties in perfectly to what you're saying about how we are just on autopilot, right? And stress comes into it, and what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do, and us figuring out that we are our most valuable asset. I say
Mhm.
that, and also time, right? So it's not money, it's not anything that money can really buy you because you can't get time back, right? So what does that mean? That means that you should probably invest the most time in you. You are,
Yeah.
as your most valuable asset. So that kind of went really well with that. We are working to, I guess, we're living to work instead of working to live. And I have to say that sometimes it is hard for people to take the time to take that massage or go to that brunch, because people just are not all set up to do that. They don't have maybe some of those privileges, especially with time or money, or but if you can do little things for yourself that make you feel alive, that's what you should do. And typically at the end of the show is where, when I ask my guests, like, what makes you happy, like what do you do for yourself, like I don't want to hear that you love helping people, because of course that's why you're here, that's why you have your business. And I don't want to hear that your kids are your everything, because of course they are. We know this, right? Like I want to know what do you do for yourself that literally kind of checks that box for you to say, I am now recharged and I'm ready to go for another round of this just to make it better.
Okay, can I answer that question?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
It's for you.
And
It's for you.
oh, it is for me. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And everybody listening too. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
last year, around this time, I would say it was September-ish, my oldest daughter went back to school and my younger one was in daycare. And I think I had spent so much time just like doing that I experienced like a significant burnout. And I was just completely depleted. And instead of being like, oh, this is great, like my kids are not here anymore, I can just pour into my business, I felt like I had, like, I was
Nothing.
in the red. I was
Yeah.
in the red. And I had to make the decision to delete a lot of things off of my plate in order to be able to pour back into myself. One of them being my podcast that I had for 3 years, but I was just like, I don't have the capacity for this anymore. One day I'll pick it back up because I love to talk, in case you don't know, or in case you couldn't tell. But I really, like, there were things that I was doing, like I was working every night, like into the evening. I wasn't like spending any time doing things that like just made me happy, because there was no time for that.
Right.
And what I realized was that I needed to stop. For me, I needed to stop giving up my evenings, and I needed to like save those to do things that were just for Andrea. Because again, outside of our business, we are people, and that human needs to be poured into as well. So going back to the question of like, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? There's a few things that I have now taken up, hobbies, we'll call them, that I'm not going to try and sell on Etsy, that I'm not going to like try and turn into a business, that
Right.
they're literally things that I do just for me that make me happy, just because. One of them is making bracelets. You can see I bead with like polymer clay, just get them off of Amazon. And I just like make beads and bracelets for fun. I make them for other people. I just make them for myself because it makes me feel happy. And I also have really taken up like sticker booking.
Amazing.
So I like bought stickers, and I bought like a book that you can take, like they're like reusable pages where you can pull the stickers back off. And I will just sit at night and I will just like organize my stickers and I will make bracelets or whatever it is. And that seemingly small childish task, which some people might call it childish, but I believe that we've gotten so far away from doing things that just bring us joy. You know, we're told to grow up and we can't be silly. You know, we need to be productive, human, grown adults. But these things are just so simple and they bring me such joy. And in an effort to prevent being burnt out again, because quite frankly, it effing sucked really bad. I've now acknowledged that like these are the small things that I need to create time and space for that make me happy. And you said this earlier, and I want to just highlight it again because I think it's really important. And we often, I know I've been guilty of this, is it's like, okay, I want to make a change in my life and I want to feel better. So I'm going to overhaul everything and that's going to solve things. But it's really, it's taking on way too much if you try and carve out a week, or if you try and like redo everything or restructure everything that you're doing in your life. But if you can like take 10 minutes here, if you haven't been taking any time, or like an afternoon here or whatever here, or pre-plan for like some bigger, you know, time we're going to go away and take care of yourself. Like it doesn't have to be huge things. It can be small things, but those small things, they add up over time and they're all important.
Right. Right. One, I don't think they're childish. I think people need to start looking at it as we have to use our brain in different ways. So especially for people who are entrepreneurial minded, business minded, we use our brain in a very specific way, 8 to 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
That when you say you need a break, sometimes it's not a break where you just do nothing. It's a break where you use a different part of your brain to kind of leave that one area, go to another. It's been proven that it's very helpful. So I don't think it's childish. I think that's amazing. I used to paint and I find myself now not having time to do that. And it used to bring me so much joy, but in the sense of I could get lost into it. It's almost like my brain would just shut off and I would just do my thing. I miss that feeling. So I completely understand. And also for somebody who's in the service industry, doing something with your hands is also a different way of, thinking and doing and occupying your time and challenging your brain, right? Whereas a lot of people have jobs where they do a lot of things, they have entire careers based on doing things with their hands. That's not typically us. We type or we speak, we think of things. So doing things with your hands is so beneficial. So no, I don't want you to minimize it that way, because I think it's really important that these are the little things. And this is what people want to know about some of us, especially when they want to work with you. I think I was talking to a client last week, and I mean, I said it. I'm so far away from like what the corporate world would think is appropriate. But at the beginning, I really had a problem with that. Like all my emails sounded very corporate because I was in corporate. But I'm very far away from that now, and I'm actually really proud of it. So I was saying to my client, I was like, I'm having people over for my birthday on Saturday, and hey, my best friend is doing this, and I have a friend that's doing this, and oh, by the way, one of them is Maltese. I know you're Maltese, and we just kind of we connected on a different way that I wouldn't typically talk to in a corporate situation. And so funny. I mean, that client, he's amazing. He's an amazing human, amazing client. It just, we were able to connect in a different way. People that work with you one-on-one and for a long time, they want to get to know you that way. They want to know who they're spending a lot of time with, or money, or who they're investing in, or who they're supporting. So this is why I ask questions like this too, because I want to get to know people on that level. Right.
Well, and I love that you highlighted the whole, like, the corporate mindset and that belief. Like, I feel like for a long time, and this goes back to like the conditioning that we've gotten in society, like I think we've associated a certain persona and qualities with like successful or like professional or whatever it is. And it's like, if anyone operates outside of that for a long time, it's like, oh, well, that person must not be intelligent enough, or must not be somebody that you can trust, or like, it's like we took that personal connection and touch out of it. But like, again, we're still humans underneath everything that we do. And we're also humans who are hardwired for connection and belonging, and feeling like we can connect with other people and feel heard. And like, all of us want to be accepted. All of us want to feel like we're a part of something, and like people like us. Anybody who tries to say to you, like, I don't care if anybody likes me, I don't believe that for 1 second, because it is an innate desire that we all have. And so to operate in a more human connection type of way, to say that that's not professional, is foolish. And I think that there is definitely a shift happening. Maybe you're noticing it too, that it's like, oh, let's bring the person back into the profession, and we can be fun and laugh. God forbid we laugh, and also be productive and effective and millionaires and whatever it is at the same time.
Yeah. But it also, I think it's one, I agree, completely agree. Two, I think the whole corporate idea of what you should do or how you should be is connected to restraint. So if you don't have the restraint to keep the personal stuff out, or if you don't have the restraint not to make that inappropriate comment or what would be considered inappropriate, right? It's all subjective. It's it's about restraint, and it's about, oh, maybe not that you're not intelligent, but maybe you don't have the restraint to do this. And that's how men do business, right? Like that's how they understand each other, and that's okay, because obviously there's no doubt about it that we are different in a lot of the ways that we do say, think, especially in business. And it's funny because at no point do I walk into a room and all of a sudden I'm only a businesswoman. I'm still a mom, always, because if that phone rings, I'm still a mom. I still have to go and deal with whatever it is. And I'm not saying that men don't deal with that, but historically and typically, maybe you have somebody else that you default that need to be, you're still a dad, but you can say, oh, hold on, I have to call my wife, my partner, my girlfriend, my whoever, my mom, my, their nana, to go deal with this type of a thing. It's more, I guess, historically accurate or whatever. Not everybody has the same situation. I get that. Try not to like offend anybody. But when I go places, it's like, oh, no, I'm that person. I'm that person that still has to go do that. Even if you're not a mom, even if it's a pet, even if it's, somebody you're taking care of, even if it's your other things. And I think that women are they don't fight that. They accept it, they deal with it, and they say, I don't have a choice. So I'm always going to be a businesswoman, a mom, a caregiver, XYZ. Or maybe I don't know, maybe you're a golfer on the side. Maybe you're, you do other things that make you happy. But I feel like women are way more accepting of the fact that they have these multiple roles that they have to fulfill. Do I think that men aren't? No, of course, there are some that are.
Yeah.
Do I think that they would benefit sometimes from learning that it's okay to be that? I think they would, because I feel like men too, they go through suppressing a lot of emotions. And I see this with my own family, right? It's not that they're not smart or that they're not, absolutely not. Like, I have, I'm blessed. We have educated people in more than just institutional education, right? In my family, and I can see, I'm like, the difference between this, but you struggle with this mentally too. And it's, I think, oftentimes because you're supposed to be the man, you're supposed to be the provider, blah blah blah, and
Mhm.
that's your entire role. Whereas with women, it's like, no, you're supposed to be what everybody needs you to be, right? I think if there was a little bit of balance, it would work out a little better.
Yeah, and I think that like this feels like a really good time to just remind everyone who's listening, especially if you are a woman, is that that is why it is so important to carve and prioritize you, like you as
Yes.
a human person who has needs and wants and desires,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that has value in society. Like you are just as worthy as taking that time to pour into in whatever way that means for you. So maybe it does mean starting to go to a yoga class. Maybe it does mean hiring a coach, somebody to hold you accountable to prioritizing yourself. Maybe it does mean taking that weekend away or doing whatever it is that is just for you, that lights you
Yeah.
up, fills you up, and is really intentional with making sure that you are being taken care of so that you can pour into all of those other people and all of those other roles that you have. I'm just like so passionate about people prioritizing themselves and like healing and releasing and just connecting with themselves.
Yeah. So speaking of connecting, I did take a look through our sneak peeks there. Tell us a little bit about the retreat that you've got planned.
Oh, yes. So in April 2025, so it's actually 4 months away, which is bananas, for 4 days. And it's 5 nights because I want to make sure everyone has a day to get there and get settled. April 13th to, nope, 15th to 18th, I'm having a women's retreat in Punta Cana. So
Oh,
this is both for
amazing.
entrepreneurs. As if you're an entrepreneur, it can be a business write-off because it is coaching and personal growth, but
Yes.
also just for women who are wanting to reconnect with themselves, spend some time taking a vacation, which everyone wants, but with intention. So it's 4 days long. Each day has a different theme of reconnecting with yourself, refreshing, letting go of some stuff that we're all holding on to stuff, releasing some of that stuff, connecting with the other women. And it is in a sunny tropical environment. We're going to the Malia, Punta Cana Beach Wellness in Punta Cana, obviously. It's a beautiful, wellness-focused, all-inclusive resort. So everything, all you have to do is say yes to the retreat and everything else is taken care of for you, because
Amazing.
that's what it's meant to be, is that like opportunity to pour back into yourself in a really wellness-focused way.
Yes, that's amazing. Highly recommend if you've got the time and the budget, because it's almost like I've ran a retreat before, not in a very sunny location, but we had a very nice location in Ontario on a lake, and even that, I think it was the perfect blend of, you know, some time for yourself, but also you're doing some things that are, for
Mhm.
development. And if you are a type A personality, that stuff kind of sometimes goes in hand, and your brain can be all filled with dopamine to be like, I am being so productive, but also I am lounging on a chair for, an hour here, an hour there. This is also something that could be categorized as one of those things that you do for yourself, right? And for your
Yeah.
business.
It was really important for me to balance those two things of like having time just to like integrate, be quiet with yourself, enjoy the scenery around you. But also, if you think about, if you listen to a show like this, or you have a podcast that you listen to, or something that, an event that you go to that you enjoy, and you get nuggets from that, think about how much that change can be catapulted when you take yourself out of your life for 4 days and have like intentional time, how much clarity can come in areas of your life that you didn't even realize you could get clarity from by just removing yourself when you're journaling and spending that intentional time. So I recommend it for anyone. There's only 7 spots left. It's a pretty intimate group. I'm taking 10 women, and that's it. So yeah, if that's of interest, it's a great way to invest in yourself and in turn in your business next year in 4 months.
I know. So I've pasted the link in all of our locations here. You guys will find it, or you can go to balancebliss.blog/retreat, and you guys can get some of the information there. There's just so much that we can do, including, I guess I should ask you, so if, let's say we're running on 0, like you were running on this summer, and I can relate, for me, it was December of last year. I just let my calendar run wild, and I regretted it because I think I had 3 days off the whole month. And I had nothing. As soon as January rolled around, when you're supposed to hustle to kind of get everything back running, I was just like done. So if you were running on 0 and you needed to start something today that is very doable and reasonable and, I guess accessible to everybody, what is it that you would tell somebody to start doing?
I would encourage them to, so if you want to do it today, take some time, literally sit down and just think about maybe not in your life, because that's a really big thing to think about, but even in the last week, what has felt heavy and what has felt light in terms of the priorities that you have, the expectations that are on you, what feels heavy and what feels light. And if there are things that feel light, great, keep doing those. I mean, metaphorically on a spiritual level, right? Not like physically. And so the things that feel light, keep doing those things. Make sure that you have space in your calendar for the things that feel light. For the things that feel heavy, are those heavy things that you have to keep continuing to do? Or can you release some of those things that feel heavy? And if there are things that feel heavy that you can't release, then doing the light things is even more important, because then you can start to make sure that you have enough in you to be able to do those heavy things when they're balanced with the light.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing advice. And it's something that you can just do right now. Well, as we get off, we can do that. Well, we're 3 minutes away, which is wild because I feel like this just flew on by.
There is actually one more thing that I want to mention too. I kind of said this earlier on, and then I said, I'll circle back to it, and I never did. But on Sunday, December the 29th, I'm hosting a free online workshop. It's an hour, and it's going to just be that opportunity for pause, and especially leading into the new year. It's going to give you some time to reflect on all of these different components that make up who we are. We're going to do a little bit of a rating, like how am I doing in each of these areas, and then do a little bit of action setting on what we can do to pour back into ourselves a little bit. And if you go to Instagram, you can register for that free workshop through the link in my bio.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's at _balance_bliss, and you can register there through Andrea's link in bio. That's amazing. I'm going to check my calendar, see what I'm doing on the 29th. Yeah, I'm going to see what I'm doing on the 29th. Well, thank you so much to everybody that tuned in. I really enjoy seeing everybody coming and saying hello or leaving comments. Again, thanks for working with me on Instagram. Everybody that was on there, I have to usually move over back and forth. Oh, technology, right? But I appreciate how patient everybody is. Remember that a lot of these links are going to be in the comments and on whatever platform you're watching on, and it's going to, if you didn't catch it all, catch it on SoundCloud. It will be posted shortly. And thank you to the United Public Radio Network. I really appreciate the platform. And Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to coming and educating us. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you come back later. Let me
Anytime.
know when you're doing when your book comes out, or before or after your retreat. Let me know, and we'll do it again.
Okay, sounds fabulous.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Reach out to me.
Thanks.
DM me. I love it.
Yes. Yes, Instagram. So thank you everybody for tuning into the show, and thank you to the chat room. A big thank you to AI Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We will see you guys next week.